Hello and welcome to the Empower Collective Show. I'm your host, Dr. Celia Corbo, entrepreneur, functional health practitioner, and licensed chiropractor. Join us on our guest speaker episode as we dive into stories of remarkable women making a difference and transforming their dreams into reality. Today on the show, we have Suzy Perry. In 2017, Suzy learned the significance of the breath after sustaining a traumatic brain injury. Breath became her life force and the foundation to rebuild her mind and life. In that moment, she chose to take the empowered choice and for 14 months, totally bedbound, harnessed this tool. Now qualified in the alchemy of breath and HypnoBreathwork, Suzy is highly passionate about sharing this miracle with you. Hi, Suzy. How are you?
Hi, Celia. So good. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh,
I'm so excited about our conversation today.
me too. Oh my gosh. When I was going through contacts of who to reach out to, I was like, wow, this is so cool. Hypno breathwork. I've never heard of that before. So I'm so excited to learn more about it.
Yeah, I can't wait to share it with you because it is truly magical.
Amazing. Well, before we dive into all the things that you do, all the wonderful things that you do, can you tell us just a little bit more about you and yourself, your story?
Oh, yes. Where do we even begin? I feel like it's been 5 different lives in one life.
Yeah.
So I'm half Czechoslovakian, half English. My mum
Mm-hmm.
sent me away at 8 years old. I didn't really grow up with my family. But then I ended up, using different coping mechanisms to work with that abandonment and became quite heavily into alcohol and
Mm-hmm.
did not know how to look after myself. Started working in the music industry, started partying 5 nights a week. And then I got really sick.
Mm-hmm.
I got diagnosed with an autoimmune disease. And then I did what I only knew best at that time during a hard time in my life. I decided to numb myself out, drink booze, party, junk food. And then a few months later, the doctors were telling me it was cancerous tumors.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. So then that was the first healing journey I ever did. I was in a doctor's surgery and they were like, right, you have to have surgery. And I was like, no, I can't. They were
Mm-hmm.
trying to get me to do the most horrific surgery. They wanted to do a vulvectomy.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was 31 at the time. So imagine sitting in a doctor's office and being told they're going to cut out your women's, like what makes you a woman.
Yeah.
Celia, that was the first time I heard my intuition. My intuition
Mhm.
was just like kicked me in the stomach and was like, no, this isn't your story. This
Mhm.
this isn't it. It's a no. So I said no. I was in the doctor's surgery. I said, no, this is actually not what I'm going to do. And I left, and the NHS in England, they would send me letters every fortnight. Where are you? You shouldn't be not doing anything. You need to come back. And I found a Chinese doctor, and he was like, actually, I can help you. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to listen to you. And I started my healing journey there. And I started working with a Chinese doctor. I packed a suitcase up. I moved to Thailand. I moved to a Buddhist healing
Oh,
center, packed a suitcase of Chinese herbs up, moved to a Buddhist healing center in Thailand. That was where I started to learn my meditation practice, started fasting, started to learn all about the body. Because I got sent away at such a young age, I never knew
mhm,
how to eat well or look after myself. So
mhm,
suddenly when I find myself sick in my 30s, I was like, okay, I'm going to have to start learning how to care for myself.
mhm.
So that's where it all started. 2 years later, I had done Chinese therapy, the Gerson therapy. I had done intravenous vitamin C's, intravenous ozone, so many different modalities. I don't believe there's a one size fits all for the whole journey of your healing. It's always about tuning in and listening to what your body needs at every moment and every stage. But 2 years later, I got the all clear that I had healed it all naturally. So
Wow.
had then went back on my merry way and actually started doing what I used to do, drinking again and partying again. Yeah, because I hadn't rewired my mindset,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So then it was like, the universe says, like, you gotta start listening to the universe, right? If you don't, it's gonna start giving you bigger wake-up calls.
Yeah.
So clearly I did not listen enough. And I
Mhm.
started going back to my old lifestyle because, at that age, of course, I still had the same friends, the same
Mhm.
partner. So they were still living a life that was aligned to my life before I got sick.
Mhm.
So it was very easy for me to start just drifting back into that lifestyle.
Mhm.
And then a few years later, because the universe was like, hey, you didn't listen, I then have this huge accident where I have a massive traumatic brain injury.
Mhm.
And I am bedridden for 14 months. I can't talk, I can't walk, I'm repeating the same questions over and over again, I'm slurring my words. And it was hell, Celia. It
Mhm.
really was, that was the
Yeah.
darkest time of my life. So many people always say to me, oh, a brain injury must have been a breeze after cancer. And I'm like, it's actually the opposite way round,
Mhm.
because at least when I was healing my tumors, I had my mind to help me. I
Mhm.
was studying, I was learning, I was talking to different doctors, I was, empowering myself. But with a brain injury, you don't have your mind to help you along the healing
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah.
So I was very suicidal a couple of times. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was pretty dark. And
Mhm.
learning breathwork was one of my saviors, because when I couldn't do anything, the one thing I could do was breathe.
Yeah.
So it gave me something to hold on to when I had nothing.
Mhm. Wow. That's a powerful story. Lots of lessons learned, but really is a good wake up call that we are being led into the life that we're supposed to live. But if we don't listen, the universe will shake us up a little bit in order to get us to that final destination, right? Or to that end point.
Oh, you have to listen.
Yeah.
I listen very intently now. Every
Yeah.
whisper, I'm like, okay,
It's like, did I hear something?
okay, I'm doing it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. But now tell us a little bit more, because I've seen and heard a lot about breath work. I even do it with myself. I do it with my clinic patients. But what's hypno breath work?
Yeah, and it's like that story I told you earlier, how I like healed and then ended up going back into my old life because I hadn't rewired my mindset. So this is why I love
Right.
hypno breathwork so much. So breathwork helped me heal my brain injury. It was
Mm-hmm.
amazing. That was my first trainings in breathwork with the Alchemy of Breath. That's holotropic and rebirthing. So this allows like a lot of blood flow to the brain. It allows us to access these different brainwave states, and it gives us these amazing experiences where we can release trauma.
Mm-hmm.
However, when I was healing my brain injury, I did something called neurofeedback training, where they had straps and electrodes all around my head, and they were monitoring blood flow to my brain. And the doctors were telling me to do the usual things that would get blood flow to the brain. So counting, telling stories, repeating questions after them.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing was getting blood flow to my brain. And so
Hmm.
obviously that would fire up the prefrontal cortex, right? That's our logical
Yeah.
mind. So luckily my neurofeedback trainer was really open-minded, and he was like, Suzy, do your breathing. Honestly, Celia, within a second, I could see all these other parts of my brain lit up and blood flow. And I was like, wow, like I knew it had been healing me, but when I could see it like that in real
Yeah.
time, I was just like, this is like unbelievable, the power that we have within us. And actually, it was at that moment that I realized the opportunity we have with the HypnoBreathwork, because we're accessing this part of our brain, why not use it to start using the hypnosis techniques to rewire past stories, to rewire traumatic events? Why
Mm-hmm.
not use it to start visioning and put ourselves in the energy of our future and start
Mm-hmm.
firing and wiring those neural pathways?
Mm-hmm.
So this is the difference between breathwork and the hypnobreathwork, is that if we really start to look at the subconscious mind and look at our subconscious programming, so we can not be stuck in our past any longer and really start to put ourselves in our future version of ourselves.
That's very powerful, because I think a lot of the times we are told to focus on the present, which is definitely very important. But I like how you just said to put us into our future version of who you want to be. Because if you're in the present and you're stuck, let's say, it's hard to want to change your network because you don't know what the future holds. But imagining, visualizing, breathing through that into that future possibility is so powerful. And that's what stuck out for me a lot when you just mentioned that, because living in the present's beautiful and definitely necessary, but that future version, how do you want to better yourself? How do you want to better your life? That's also super important.
Yeah, and to make our present better,
Yeah.
actually by making our future bigger.
Oh my God, I love that. That should be a quote.
Yes. Oh, it is a quote, actually. I pulled it from
Oh,
a
I
book.
love that.
I think it's from like the 10X book. I can't remember the author. But
Yeah,
so I wrote this down. I was like, okay, if you want to make your present better, make your future bigger.
I love
And so
that.
I'm all about being in the present. I love, being very firmly here and now, but I'm
Yes.
also just like, allowing myself to dream of that bigger future so that my whole body can be excited. It can be energized. It can,
Hmm.
start to put myself in the energy there. And that's going to make it so much easier to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Because as you know, because you are a brain expert, like our brains don't know the difference between the reality of what's in front of us or our imaginations. So it's like, if we can really imagine that state where we want to go, then are we go priming our brain? And this is
Hmm.
a technique that, like, all athletes use. They know the power of this. They
Hmm.
use it. There was that really famous Olympian swimmer, Michael Phelps, who
Yep.
visualized every single which way his goggles would be knocked off. And so
Hmm.
that when his goggles did get knocked off in one of his races, he had the neural pathways there to be like, boom, straight back on his
Yep.
face. So it's like, well, we can start doing that. We can start priming ourselves for our future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, again, a lot of that is with the visualization. Like, a lot of people don't realize how important that is. Even I myself sometimes have trouble with it, because it's like, oh, can this really happen? But yeah, if you think about it, if you breathe through it, if you rewire the brain that it can see that so clearly, it can happen. It's just you have to practice and make it a habit, right?
Shall I tell you one other way that I do it that I feel
Yeah,
is
okay.
so powerful? Might be a bit nuanced for everyone, but I do it in my hula hoop.
That's
When I'm
amazing.
when I
Movement.
during movement, plus also I'm
Yeah.
out whenever I hula hoop, I'm usually out in nature. I'm usually
Yeah.
at the beach or on the water. So I'm already in the state of abundance because nature is
Yeah.
abundance. I'm in
Yeah.
abundance. I'm in nature. I'm inside my hula hoop. I'm moving my hips. I'm like so happy.
Yeah.
And the hoop is obviously a circle, which is, so there's no beginning, no end.
Yeah.
So you're in this sacred circle. And honestly, Celia, I just dance around and I imagine my future, and I promise you, it always happens.
I love that. I'm not a hula hoop fan. I'm so sorry. Because I can never get it to stay up. It always falls and it's just discouraging. But that's so important. Like, you found your movement, and that also helps to bring blood to your brain. And that also helps to bring those neural connections to light up and to get stronger. So, yeah, that's just how it's so important to move your body and not just sit and think about things, right?
Yeah, I'm actually not into this scripting your way there, because you're not actually changing your vibration just by writing it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
And actually, hula hooping is so interesting. Hula hooping actually saved me when I had my brain injury, because I couldn't exercise, right? For quite a
Hmm.
few years, because anytime I moved my head, I would go
Yeah.
into vertigo. So everyone would be like, go to yoga. I would go to a yoga class and be in bed for like a week afterwards in vertigo because of one
Yeah.
downward dog. And so I saw this lady on the beach with this hula hoop.
Yeah.
And she's Russian. She was Russian, so she didn't speak English. And she, like, I'm Eastern European, so I understand the Eastern Europeans, but she would,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, can I try it? And every morning she'd just look at me and be like, work. I was like, okay. But honestly, because I could do it standing up without moving
Yeah.
my head, and I could do it myself without, like, being in a class where maybe people would push me too much over my limit. I
Yeah.
had such a
Yeah.
tiny threshold where, after my brain injury, of things I could do for my nervous system. Finding the hula hoop actually saved me.
Wow. That's amazing, honestly. And then do you incorporate that into your groups or into your programs, like specifically hula hooping, or do you just encourage movement in general?
Oh no, I don't. No, that's just something I love to do for fun,
Oh, okay.
even though many people have said that. No, it's just something I love to do for fun. And
Yeah.
I'm feminine embodiment trained. When I was healing my tumors because of where they were,
Mhm.
actually did a lot of feminine embodiment work, because I really had
Mhm.
to look at why they came up on my vulva. So obviously, when you do a lot of feminine embodiment work, it is all about moving the hips. It is all about
Mhm.
allowing that energy to be free and moving.
Yeah, because a lot of the times when we go through a trauma in a specific area, there's a blockage it could be an emotional blockage or a physical blockage, but a lot of the time when I'm when I'm talking to female patients or even a lot of my friends, and there's a lot of reproductive issues, there's a lot of there's a lot of blocks even in like the root chakra or in movement where they're not flexible or anything like that. So it's amazing that the hula hoop not only saved you with your trauma for your head and your brain, but also for your previous diagnosis, right? To help with the cancer, to help with all of that.
Yeah, hula hooping and belly dancing, actually.
Yeah.
It's so true what you said, about usually when a symptom comes up in a part of your body, you have to look at the energetic blockage
Yeah.
beneath it, because actually, before my diagnosis with the vulval tumors, Celia, I was working on a building site.
Hmm.
I still have it, actually. I just don't run it anymore. I delegate it because HypnoBreathwork is my passion, but I have a
Mhm.
massive real estate business. And that's what I was doing before I got sick. So I was on a building site every single day, covered in dust, working with only men,
Yeah.
overseeing huge projects. And I was so in my masculine energy.
Yeah.
And that was my energetic imbalance.
A lot of the times for women, especially in our society, it's really difficult to be in touch with your feminine side because there is almost this pressure that you have to be successful. You have to have the business or the career or whatever, almost to be at the same level as the man, the biological man. But that's not the way we're designed. And then we turn off not just the feminine part of our brain, but also the feminine energy within us.
But why can't we be successful and be in our feminine energy? This is
We would kill it. We would do great.
because then, actually, when you can run your business from your feminine energy, actually, I see it as two different Right. So we can either run our business from a push energy, we're pushing
Yeah.
really hard to get stuff done. We can
Yeah.
run our business from a pull energy. We're being pulled towards that future vision of ourselves. And not only
Hmm.
that, it's kind of magnetic then. And
Yeah.
this is the feminine energy, it's when you can be in your magnetism, in your joy, that your manifestations are just happening. Your business is just growing
Hmm.
because you are the honeypot.
Yeah. And how would you encourage or how would you guide someone to be more in touch with their feminine energy? I'm assuming breath work would be one of those ways, but what are some other ways that we could be more in tune without even realizing it, like through physical or chemical ways in our everyday life?
Hmm. Yeah, so I have actually a 10-week HypnoBreathwork program, an embodied feminine program. And I obviously do use breathwork for it all, but it's mainly
Hmm.
to get in touch with the parts of ourselves that bring out the feminine. So
Hmm.
to get in touch with our intuition is a very feminine trait. But often we don't get taught to trust our intuition because from a very young age, we get told to listen to everybody outside of ourselves apart from us.
Hmm.
So, that's one of the modules in there. One of the modules is, really getting in touch with our womb space and using our breath to cleanse our womb and, you know, develop a greater relationship.
Hmm.
So I really love breath work to really get into your feminine because, to be in your feminine, you have to be in your body. And breath is one of the
Yeah.
quickest ways to be in your body. Obviously,
Yeah.
hula hooping and belly dancing always. And honestly, I just think to be in your feminine, just slowing down, like really just allowing yourself to slow down and smell the roses and pet the cats and just to be in that joyful, playful, light energy. And that's it, actually. I feel like the feminine is all about the lightness, it's the light-heartedness, it's a very light energy. And
Hmm.
obviously, one of the quickest way for us to lighten our energy is through breath work because we release any heavier emotions that we may be holding on to.
And with the breath work, because I actually heard one time in a conference, it's the fastest way to change your nervous system. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so true. How is it so that you can help people, whether it be through a program or through that personal one-on-one kind of time that you would spend with your clients? How is it that you get people to understand that there's this huge change going on within their body without them freaking out? Because the first time I did breath work, I freaked out. I'm like, this is a lot, right? Like it was very overwhelming. So how do you teach that or communicate that to people? Because sometimes it can be very overwhelming, but we think it's so simple because we breathe every day.
So yeah, I really make sure that everybody feels really safe in my breathwork sessions. So first of all, I just really make sure that everybody knows what can happen, every single
Mhm.
tiny detail, so that if any of these things come up, they know they're prepared for it. But also, I don't do the like really hard, really fast
Okay.
style of breath work. I hold a much more gentle space because I feel like there's two different ways to hold the space in breath work. You can go really hard, really fast, effectively like, you know, getting your nervous system to forcefully release whatever it's holding on to. Or you can, my version is to hold a space with so much love, so much tenderness, so much care that their nervous systems just feel safe to
Hmm.
open. Now, this means that they can still have huge experiences. You know, some of the things I've seen, I can't share them here because obviously it's personal between me and my
Yeah.
clients, but
Yeah.
huge life changing experiences in one session, even when you're just being held so tenderly and lovingly, because you're so safe. It's like you're back in the womb,
Yeah.
and then it's like this just opening.
Hmm. I feel like there's this, like we've been talking about, this femininity to it where again you can either be very masculine about it, for lack of a better term, and to relate to what you're talking about, where it's very like a push, like you have to breathe, you have to do it forcefully, Or you could do it gently, and you could just let the body just start to oxygenate itself and be very, rhythmic with it, as opposed to very invasive.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Now to get into a little bit more of the entrepreneurial side of things, because I'm curious, how did you realize that this wasn't just a passion that you wanted to keep for yourself and to help only you? How did you realize that you wanted to make this your life's work in helping other people and transform this into a business or into a service to help others?
Yeah, I think it's because it changed my life so radically. You
Mhm.
know, it gave me my life back when I had no life. And also the hypnobreathwork itself, after a brain injury, you don't recognize yourself anymore. I can't
Mhm.
remember the term for it. Maybe you can remind me, but there's that term where you don't recognize your character anymore.
I don't know the word. It's not coming. Maybe it'll come to me,
Yeah.
but
But it
yeah.
was like I would look in the mirror and I would just be like, "Who is this woman looking back at me?"
Yeah.
Because obviously, a blow to the brain is a blow to your hormones because of the
Yeah.
vagus nerve. It's your gut microbiome, your everything.
Yeah.
And so I suddenly was like going from 0 to 100 within a second. I lost all my confidence because all my face was lopsided. And
Mhm.
you know, it was the hypnobreathwork technique that really allowed me to start to rebuild my confidence and rebuild my self-love and self-worth. And from where I was to where I am is so vastly different. And this is why I feel like it's my purpose to share it with other people to help them.
Mhm. I think that when you're driving your business with passion, it it's almost like the universe is whispering to you the whole entire time and telling you like, "Yep, okay, do this now or do that now," and your intuition is very strong. But were there times where you felt that, ugh, this might not work out, or did you ever have any periods of doubt or unsureness?
Of course, I feel like every entrepreneur does. I feel like an entrepreneurial journey is like actually a disguise for another soul growth journey, you know. But even through those moments, I've never doubted it. I just keep going, you know. Of
Mhm.
course, you have those moments where maybe you didn't get enough signups that you wanted to, or whatever it is. But I think because my passion is so there, every morning I can't wait to just get up and get going. You know,
Mhm.
I'm always like, people pay me to do this work that I love so much. I would pay them.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause
Absolutely.
I
Yes,
just
I know, I know.
I love it that much.
Yeah. And in regards to your business, you just posted something recently, and I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to chat about this with you,
Mm.
about a lot of the coaches that are out there, because your passion, your love for what you do is very obvious. And you made a post about how you invested in a coaching program and it was all beautiful on the outside, and then on the inside, it wasn't what you had expected it to be. Can you tell us a little bit more just about the industry and, what sets you apart, what to look for, but also as a coach, what that means in the deliverance of your service to your client?
Mm. Yeah, I don't really want to like say anything bad about anybody,
No,
but
no, no, but
no,
in
I know
general,
that.
in
But
general.
in
Yeah.
general, I think it's just very important to really tune into your intuition with
Yeah.
who you work with. And
Mhm.
it's really interesting, Celia, because actually these experiences, even though they weren't that nice, and it does make me feel a bit sad that people operate in this world with, the facade of healing work, and underneath you see a very different story. It actually taught me a lot. It taught me how I didn't want to run my business.
Mhm.
And it taught me how the importance of the people you hire also needs to be in alignment with your vision, your goals. And yeah, I learned a lot. So I feel like I think just look for the people who are really true. And you
Yeah.
you can feel it. You can feel it in their
Yeah.
energy. You can feel where they're coming from. Is this really truly an act of service? Is the intention pure? Or
Mm-hmm.
are they just trying to make money? Of
Yep.
course, we all need money. We all need to live.
Of course. Yeah.
But you can feel the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I am so fortunate, Celia, and I'll be totally honest. I'm so fortunate. I've got my real estate business and I have an Airbnb business in London. I turned my house into a biohacking house
Ooh, yes, I
because,
saw some posts. That was so
yeah,
cool.
during my brain injury, I bought a hyperbaric chamber and an infrared sauna and
Yeah.
all the kit. So I Airbnb that and I have my real estate business. So I am so lucky that actually I can keep my breath work quite pure because I don't
Yeah.
actually desperately need to be making a living off it. And actually I heard Elizabeth Gilbert recently on a talk when she came to London a couple of months ago. She said, don't make your passion into something you need to make, that you have to rely on living off,
Yeah. Yeah. I just finished listening to the audiobook Big Magic by her.
Mm.
And the universe just kept throwing it in my face that you need to listen or you need to pick it up, you need to read it. And I finally did. And it was so inspiring to even hear how successful she's been, but also how much of a struggle it was at some points in her life, but how she always promised herself that she wouldn't make writing her source of income. It wasn't going to, it wasn't going to be her driving force, and she wasn't going to put that pressure on her passion. And you just restating that, it's so true. Because then when you put that pressure on, it starts to distract you from what the intention, what the purpose was in the first place. And then it gets to be salesy, and then it gets to be inauthentic, and people will feel that even over a social media platform.
Yeah, they do feel it. And obviously, I've realized what a fortunate position I am in to be able
Mm-hmm.
to have it like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also two sides of the coin because obviously, at the very beginning when I started my breathwork business, because I had the income of my real estate business, it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I just treated it like a hobby.
Yeah.
So it's like you do have to have some skin in the game, really commit and double down.
Mm-hmm. Would that be something that you would recommend to anyone looking to get into entrepreneurship, that, as much as it is your passion, as much as you want to do it, there should be something else also leveraging in the beginning phases? Or would you say, no, just do it, go for it, follow your dreams?
It's so individual.
Yeah.
So individual. I think obviously you have that moment where you have both feet in the arena. You've burnt the bridges. So you're gonna give it your absolute all,
Mm-hmm.
which is gonna make you really think differently to get this business off the ground and really make it something. So there
Mm-hmm.
is something to be said about that. And then there's also something to be said about, you know, obviously what Elizabeth Gilbert says, and it's, not putting all that pressure on your passion. It depends what
Yeah.
it is, because I feel like if it's entrepreneurship and coaching, then you can just go all in. I feel like with healing modalities, with breathwork and things like this, it is slightly different because it is a different energy.
It's almost like there's a sacredness to it. It's not just a package, or it's not just like a regular service that you can get from anybody. There is really like a sacred element to it, where you really have to be drawn to want to do it
Mhm.
as a facilitator or as a consumer.
Definitely.
Now, moving into your business full on, what kind of goals do you have to grow breathwork and to make it something that could even become more than what you expected? Or has it become that already?
Yeah, I feel like it's become that already. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
just catching up with myself. Obviously, I always have goals and dreams. I've started writing a book.
Ooh.
Yeah, just because I find writing in itself is so healing.
Yeah.
And I hope my story inspires somebody to remember how incredibly amazing their human body is at healing
Yeah.
and how empowered we can be in our body if we trust it.
Yeah.
So I feel like my direction is going towards the book writing, speaking events, and, just always honing my craft. I love to learn. I love to study. I love to keep growing what we can actually do with HypnoBreathwork.
It's wonderful that you're really wanting to take it to that next step of, being on a bigger stage, being more of a public speaker about it. Because again, it's one of those things that I've only really seen from these big gurus, like you could say like James Nestor, for example, and Wim Hof. And then that's it, right? There doesn't get so much light compared to what we see on Instagram with people like yourself who are promoting it on their individual platform. So I think that's fantastic to do it in a public speaking element so you can get more people to understand the power of the body.
Yeah, thanks, Celia. I appreciate that. I feel like I'd like to give people an experience because obviously with my
Yeah.
story, I can remind people that their body is so powerful and we have the answers within us. And then we go into a breathwork experience. And I feel like the double whammy, people are just going to walk away feeling so inspired and so powerful. And that's if I was to put my why, like what's my true why behind what I
Hmm.
do, it is to put people into their power, to remind them
Yeah.
how powerful they are, to remind them that they have this tool and it's right underneath their nose.
Hmm. Yeah, literally.
Literally.
No, and it's amazing because again, it's something that you take for granted, right?
Mhm.
It's something that we do every single day. And sometimes, again, in this really busy world, you need someone like yourself to facilitate you in just going back to the basics, but enhancing it. And I wanted to mention before, it was amazing that you got to see your brain in action because I very much love the objective side of anything, whether it be looking at your brain waves or looking at how you're walking or anything like that, because it shows you that it's working. It's almost like the proof. But you get to now bring that to your clients and into your business, and you are the proof. You don't need the brainwaves for every single person because you've just changed your life to this amazing point.
Yeah. And that's why I'm just so passionate about sharing it with everybody so that they can be inspired to make the changes themselves. Most of us are stuck on autopilot. We don't even realize it. We just
Yeah,
keep doing the same things year after year after year.
exactly. Well, Suzy, where can we find you? Because you are such a force and people need to know about you and follow you and see what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so you're fully virtual, is that correct?
That is correct. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah. So they can find me on Instagram at Breathe with Suzy, Suzy.
Amazing. Suzy, is there anything else you would like to share with us today on the episode about breathwork or about entrepreneurship?
Just for your listeners to remember that they are powerful beyond measure and to always keep trusting those intuitive nudges to listen, learn
Yeah.
to listen. And if the universe is if the universe is giving them signals, definitely don't not listen.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on today. It's been such a pleasure finally meeting you, talking with you, and getting to learn more about what you do and how you help others. So thank you so much for being on today.
Thank you, Celia, for having me. I've loved it.
Of course. And thank you everyone for listening in and tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next episode.